Hey, business vet rehabbers. So if you guys have got a vet rehab practice, and you are struggling to get it to take off, maybe you've hit a plateau, this is the Facebook Live for you. So I have got Danielle Anderson. She has a practice called SOAR in Ontario in Canada. Danielle, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Danielle, I've actually done a behind the vet rehab practice with Danielle, and I think we touched on a few of the things that we're going to talk about today because I'd actually read a blog of Danielle's. Do you remember that blog that you wrote? So for those of you who don't know, Danielle's got this amazing blog on Source. So like she writes things that are for pet owners, but also actually for vet rehabbers. So I'll get Ali, if you can, you know where that blog is. Please, can you put the link in the comments? So
it might be gone now, Megan.
We had it gone.
Yeah, so we had a website change, and I lost all my blogs from the other website, so I need to redo it.
Oh yeah, it was a fabulous one. So it was talking about basically your blog. Do you remember? It was about like how you run your business and why it is successful, and about your journey. And I remember you gave about 5 tips. So I actually jotted them down because I made a little summary of your blog because it was so good. So even if they can't see it, we can touch on that. Yeah.
Okay.
So but before we start, I just want to welcome everyone who's here, who's joining us live. Thanks so much. If you guys have got any questions, please post them in the comment section. We will answer them throughout the Facebook Live today, but it will also come on a little bit later. So if you guys are watching this as a recording, you can also post questions. Let's get a discussion going because, really what I want to see is that you guys are running successful practices. And the word successful is something that is different for everybody, all right? And so we're going to touch on that now. Like, what is successful for you? And, we'll, in Danielle's blog, she actually goes through this. You actually talk about, what was success for you, and it might be different to other people. But I think that a lot of us want this work-life balance. We want a practice where we can earn a decent living, and we don't want to have to work 12-hour days and work weekends. And so this is really what we're striving for. And this is what the business vet rehab is all about. It's like, how can we get to this point where we are doing what we want to do, what we love to do, helping animals, helping people, but at the same time, having a life that we enjoy living. So Danielle, yeah, do you want to say something?
Well, it's interesting because prior to COVID, I think we were I know we work till 8 o'clock at night some days. I'm in clinic 3 days a week. And that's all I want because of the kids at home and activities, although all of COVID has changed all of that. But I think a lot of us scaled back, right? Once COVID hit, we're like, okay, well, let's narrow down our hours and consolidate everything. And now that things are picking up, none of us really want to go back to working till 9 o'clock at night, right? Yeah. So we've increased Saturday hours for the Saturday crew, and now we're starting to go, okay, well, do we open till 7, just 2 days a week? But it's not something you realize how hard you're working and how exhausted you are. And then, talking to the vets coming in, doing their training with us, and they're like, oh yeah, we're working till 6, but then we're there till 8 doing records, and then they're working 5-6 days a week. And I'm like, no, I did that. And, we all do that, but I've been a vet for 18 years now. I don't want to go back to that. I need that work-life balance to be happy. It doesn't mean I'm not working when I'm off, because clearly I do other things. But it's very different from being emotionally and physically exhausted from being in clinic, because appointments are exhausting. It's exhausting managing clients and staff and everything else. To do that 6 days a week, I don't know how people do it. There are people that do it and are successful with it, but that's talking about success. That's definitely not my version of it.
Yeah, so let's chat about that. Success is different to different people. So for some people, it might be earning a lot of money. For other people, it might be, working half day every day, or only working 4 days a week. That's a success. That's success for you. So what was it for you? When you looked at your practice and you thought I want to run a successful practice, what is success for you?
It's so funny because I think success and your idea of it changes throughout, over time, right? So when I started, I think success was I wanted to pay my bills. I wanted to be able to take a salary, pay my bills, and that was pretty much it. I also had zero idea what a rehab clinic would achieve, right? So we were there was only one other kind of freestanding referral rehab clinic in our area when we opened, and they were successful. They'd been there for a long time. The other two were both big referral hospitals. So we're like, I have no idea. We may have 3 days a week and that's all we're ever going to have. We may have like a few appointments a day. I had no idea. And as it grew and grew, I was like, okay, maybe this is like a full-time thing, right? That's when I started dropping out of regular medicine. And so I think, now success is, for me, spreading the word, because again, I think we've talked about this. We can't see everything, right? And each individual one of us cannot see everything. So the competition shouldn't be there. It should be more collaboration. And we actually had a vet clinic was seeing this dog post TPLO, I believe, and they're fairly far away. So they live closer to us. They just switched over for the rest of their rehab. And the girls immediately posted, "This dog's doing great. Like, hats off to this rehab clinic for doing what you do. And we're so happy to be a part of this dog's treatment plan. And, this dog wouldn't be doing as well if it hadn't already been getting rehab at this other place. And we need to build each other up." Right.
Yeah.
So success for me now is spreading that word and teaching other vets that there's other ways to practice and to think outside the box and to offer these things for patients, even if it's within a regular practice, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that unity is just so important, right? That we need to get this multidisciplinary team because everyone has something to offer and everyone is offering their little piece, and it's all for the best outcome of the animal. Yeah, we've had so many chats about this, and for me, it's like, what is best for the animal? And sometimes it might be what I do, but at other times it might be somebody else, and it's okay. It's okay if it's somebody else. It's the animal that, in the end, that we're looking out for. And so, working together. And I think, one of our biggest challenges is obviously getting referrals. So, one of the challenges of practice is getting new clients. So people really, really struggling to get new clients. But maybe we should be asking ourselves, are we sending clients to other people? Are we networking within the professionals? And this can be anything from, it depends on who you are, right? You could be a hydrotherapist, a vet rehab therapist, a vet. Are you referring to other people? And then we also have that sort of indirect pet professionals, the groomers, the dog trainers, networking and connecting with them, referring to them, and likewise. So just building up this, everyone basically playing a part, whatever is the best outcome for that animal.
I still get excited when a vet calls and they want to talk about a case. We have a really good relationship with a lot of different vets in this area, and as it's grown, that makes me super happy. And I had a surgeon call me yesterday, and she calls every once in a while to refer something to us or see if we'll take something and get our opinion on something. And she called yesterday, and every time she calls, we get excited because it's such a good conversation. And I think it's easy to go, oh, surgeons just want to cut, and surgeons are going, oh, rehabbers don't want us to cut. And, but we have these great relationships with her for sure, and a lot of neurologists and surgeons, and I think that is super, super important. And when you're looking at referrals, so regardless of whether you're in a standalone facility like ours or you're within your own hospital, I think if you want people to refer to you, then I think you need to build that relationship to say, hey, I'm not going to steal your client. And I think that's one of the things that's made us successful is we see them for rehab, pain management, whatever. And then we're like, do you want us to give meds, or do you want to be the one to do that? And this is what we're recommending, but we don't have to be the one to dispense it. And half of the vets at least are like, just whatever, they're there anyways, just dispense it. They also know that if they need x-rays or they need diagnostics, we're like, you got to go back, right? You got to go back to your regular vet. This is what we're recommending. So it's not that they're losing clients. It's not that they're losing, revenue for diagnostics and things. And it is harder to solidify that when you're within a regular hospital, because the immediate concern is, you know what, no, they're going to steal our client. We're not sending them there. But I don't think it has to be like that. And I think, yes, there's so much competition within vet hospitals. And so because they're all doing the same thing, they don't want to collaborate. I think rehab puts us in a different category. And, I worked in a hospital where the owner did scopes, and he had a beautiful clinic. It is a stunning clinic. And so people would come for their scope. They're like, well, we want to come here for everything now. And he's like, can't do it. So he had an agreement with all of the vets that referred to him that at least a year after the time that he last saw that patient, he would not see them for anything else, or his associates. And it worked, because if he stole every client, it would be very, very quick. Like, people don't want to send them there.
Yeah, and I wonder whether that's something that us as vet rehabbers are not communicating effectively to the referring vets, that we are not there to take their clients and we will send them back. And I think really making a big point of sending them back and letting them know that we're sending them back for things. I think that maybe for vets that are vet rehabbers, that we're more of a threat in that regard, because people think, they can do that stuff. I think for the veterinary physiotherapists, for them, there are things that they can't do, right? So maybe they're less of a threat. But I do think that collaborative kind of way of working together, even if you are the veterinary physiotherapist, are you sending them back? Are you making sure that you are solidifying that relationship with the pet owner and their vet, and you are working together with them?
And I think it's having them be aware of what you offer. So there's tons of clinics that have laser therapy, right? So there's a fear, even with us sometimes, that if they send them to us, that we're going to do laser therapy, they lose that revenue at their hospital. And so we have made plans and rehab kind of packages that say, you know what, we're not going to laser. We'll do water, we'll do acupuncture, we'll do all of the things. So we're not taking away from you. If the vet turns around and says, you know what, they don't seem to like the class 4 laser, why don't you try with your 3B, or why don't you, then we make that, it's all about open communication, right? Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing with clients and with referring vets.
Let's chat a little bit about the models, because I think that this is one of the problems, is that we don't really have a clear model. For veterinary, it's like veterinary practices run like this and we just change a few things. But for vet rehab, there is no clear model as to how we run a vet rehab practice. And I think everyone's doing it differently. And some of us more successfully and more profitably than others. So we obviously, you already mentioned now, there's the standalone, and then there's the one that's attached to the hospital. There are pros and cons to both of them. One of the big problems when you're attached to another hospital is that the other vets see you as a threat, because now you're right next door to another vet practice. And I had a very similar thing. So although I wasn't associated with that vet practice, so I actually just rented a property that was attached to a veterinary practice. And I remember at the time thinking this is a good move, because let's say I have an emergency or something happens, I don't have to have oxygen and, ambu bags and all those kind of things. I can literally run the dog over, CPR, or they can, the nurses can come and help me that are there. And I thought, well, if I need a hospitalized cases, they've got a hospital I can use there, and I just pay them. So there were all these pros to it. But there was the problem, and initially for me it was really a big problem, because the other vets in the area were like, no ways am I referring to her, because then the client's just going to walk out, go into their vet shop and buy dog food, and then they're going to say, oh, well, or there's a skin problem or something, they're just going to say, nip in next door and try and see if they can get a consult. So you decided obviously to have a standalone, and that really sets you apart. So now you're not associated with anyone. And I think that then you don't have that worry, or they're not so worried about referring to you, because there isn't any normal veterinary GP work happening there.
Right. And we had to get it. So in Ontario, I don't know what it's like everywhere else. If you are a veterinarian working anywhere, you have to work within a college accredited facility. So we had to go through the process of getting this place accredited by the College of Veterinarians. So we're starting to see more and more of those crop up. But at the time, there was myself, and then there was Gilmore Road, and we were the only ones. And so we are accredited only for rehab. It's complicated because there actually is no list of things you need to have for rehab. So as a veterinarian, we had to apply to be a full functioning office for veterinarians, and then they'd waive things. But we had to rely on the fact that the committee would waive those objects like x-ray and blood work and all of that other stuff. So we got accredited for pain management, so we can have a pharmacy, but we don't have vaccines, and we don't have all of those other things. So I don't know where it is, what it's like everywhere else, but that's what it's like in the scope of Ontario anyways. Yeah.
So if you look back over your years now, what have been your biggest challenges, and how have you overcome them?
Staff.
Yeah.
Staff and making a team that I'm happy with.
Yeah.
I think it's easy, and I've seen this even in regular practice. You hire, and I don't, we've talked about this, I don't regret anything I've ever done with SOAR, because I'm very, very happy with where I am. And I think everything we do in life kind of leads us, right? And you grow upon it. So, I think it was a challenge, trying to figure out how to properly pay everybody, how to get more clients. Because I think when we started, it was very much like I mailed flyers out to all of Ontario, and there's a lot of vets in our region, and I mailed them all out, and I think a lot of them got dumped in the trash can because a year later, like, oh, we didn't even know about you. I'm like, really? Because I mailed you a flyer. So, looking back, I think it would have been impossible to go door to door to every clinic. But we had some good, because I had been a vet for a long time. The technician had been a technician for a long time. We had good relationships with a fair number of clinics, and I think that's what started us off. But I think we had a lot of agility clients and flyball clients and things like that. And as we grew, there was a word of mouth thing happening. And then there was some staff changeovers, and I started bringing in different people, and it changed the dynamic in the clinic. And right now, we were talking about this the other day. It makes me emotional because this group of girls get along so well. I've never been in a clinic in 18 years where the staff really gets along and meshes so well, to the point they'll needle at each other and tease each other. And, they have no problem calling each other out, and they're like, and they just go, okay. And they own up to their mistakes. They are so hardworking. And I think for me, the work ethic that I see in these girls is incredible. And for me, that's important. It depends on what's important to you as far as running a clinic. But I see them going, well, I'll just come in an hour earlier because we can't fit this patient in, right? And I've been at clinics where they're like, sorry, out of luck. And we get clients coming in that are like, yeah, these people they can't get in. And I'm like, I mean, you can't get in, this dog's paralyzed, right? So the girls are like, I'll stay late, don't worry about it. And I'm like, you'll okay, right? So we support each other that way. And so I think it's been a long haul of trying to sort out what works. Before COVID, we had a very tiered system that we'd finally sorted out, where I mean, once I started doing acupuncture, that took off so much. It literally occupies my time mostly the entire time I'm here. I'm either doing acupuncture or I'm doing initial consults for like weird, complicated cases. So I don't have an ability to see a lot of rehab anymore, but occasionally I do, and the girls will call me out for anything complicated. So that's kind of my role that I've taken in the hospital, where I used to do more rehab and I'd run the water treadmill and everything else. And now we have rehab techs that are so good at what they do and know when they don't know something, and they'll be like, okay, let's look at this case together and see if we can figure it out. We had a dog that came for a cruciate the other day, and Jenna's like, this is not a cruciate. And I was like, I agree, this is not a cruciate. What is it? And she went looking, and sure enough found like a slipped SDFT and probably a torn retinaculum that we referred off to surgery. But I trust her 100%, and I think it's mutual, and that goes for all of my staff. So she's able to see rehab outside of this room, and I see acupuncture in here, and we just revolving door all day. And then we have an assistant. So the assistant can either help her run the rehab, because we have some, especially without clients in the building, it's been challenging. And we used to run with one assistant who answered the phones, rang people out, because we had clients helping hold treats and things like that. And now we need two assistants, because otherwise we just can't make it run in here. We aren't prepared. I mean, this room is not a big room. So to be able to socially distance properly is just can't happen with clients in the building as of yet. And I think it still makes us nervous. We're trying to sort out what's going to happen in the winter, because I don't want people sitting out in their cars in the cold with their pets, right? We're in Canada. It gets pretty darn cold. So yeah, we're sorting it out. But I think right now, like today, we have 3 assistants on, and then myself and Jenna. So it's the only way we can make it work.
Yeah, so let's chat about that staff problem. So I think one of the big problems with vet rehab practice, if you look at the percentage of your revenue that you're spending on staff, it's really high in comparison to any other business, because we need so many people, and because the time that it takes for us to be able to treat patients. So the amount of revenue that we're getting in, and compared to the percentage of that is going to staff. And so we really have to be quite thoughtful as to who we are employing and what they're doing. And when I look, I do these strategy calls with the online pet health members, and what often comes up is there is the vet physio, vet rehab therapist, or vet that's doing whatever. And they are basically doing things that they shouldn't be doing, because they're worried about employing somebody in order to be able to pay for them, So they end up cleaning the treadmill and holding dogs and drying dogs and doing their accounts and doing all these things. And, I always say to them, you got to look at your costs, the cost that it costs you per minute, like for your clients. If you're consulting at, let's say, just for example, so $100 an hour, it's $60 an hour. Let me do one easy sum so I don't have to think too much. It's like $1 a minute, right, that you charge. And so you got to think about how long does it take you to clean the treadmill, and what could you pay somebody else to do that? Instead, you should be consulting. And I think that this is really where I think the vet rehabbers make a big mistake, is that they're so scared to get that person in to help them. And when they do, and I know for myself, I was exactly the same, to make that move to employ somebody was so scary, because I thought to myself, how am I going to be able to afford to pay them? I can barely afford to pay myself and all the expenses.
Right.
But when you do, you just open up more space for more consulting, more space to grow your business, more space to focus, because you're not doing the mundane things that somebody else could quite easily do that you shouldn't really be doing. You're more qualified than doing those things. And there is somebody that's probably better at doing those things than you are. So like, for example, the hydrotherapy. For me, doing hydrotherapy, if I employ the hydrotherapist, they're much better at it than I am. That's what they focused on, and that's what they're good at. And so when we're looking at employing people, I think we really got to focus on what are we good at, and look at everyone's strengths. Like you have, you've got people that do specific things. And when you get a team that works well together, and each person is doing what they're good at, then you start to see the income coming in and the team working well and everything becoming a lot more streamlined. So if you think back now, do you think back to a time when you were in that transition period And, were you also scared to make that move to employ that person? And I think everyone that I speak to that was in that situation, none of them regretted it. You never regret employing that next person.
I'm always scared. And we took on a lot of volunteers, right? Again, pre-COVID, but those volunteers we could train, and we could also go, these guys are fantastic. Maybe we are busy enough now that we actually need them. Maybe we need to pay them. And I think structuring your day. So let's say you charge $80 for a rehab session or $60, whatever. If you're paying yourself $50 an hour, which is still on the low side for a veterinarian, and you want to pay an assistant, you have no money left in that for doing anything else, paying your rent, paying your bills, anything else. So when I was starting, I didn't pay myself. And I was trying to put all the money to paying my technician and paying the bills. But we would stagger appointments, right? So again, in that hour, you were kind of seeing 1.5 appointments. So I would see them do manual therapy and laser and pass it off. And while that was good and probably the best option at the time, now that we double book, we see twice as many appointments. And again, you've doubled your revenue so is it better to have a long day to accommodate more clients, right, for schedules and time, or shorten until you get those clientele to fill up your day, have a shortened condensed day where you're double booking, and then you're actually paying for the hours you're there and you have leftover, right? To me, that makes more sense. That's what we do now. And our acupuncture, and I'm big on acupuncture because I love it, and I could not do rehab without acupuncture, and vice versa. But I mean, my acupuncture appointments are half an hour long, right? Rehabs are an hour. So I do 2 acupuncture appointments in an hour, and then she's doing a rehab. So now we have 3 appointments per hour, which makes more sense as far as paying all the people that we need to pay. And if we have a good month, then I see what I have left to bonus them, because why not, right? Like, I think they deserve that. They work their butts off. And I think I've talked to some of the other owners too, and that's what they do for their rehabbers is, well, if you've done well and you've worked hard and it's been profitable, then why not? Why shouldn't they take part in that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think incentives are great. I mean, especially like it sounds like, you've got some seriously committed staff members. And when they feel like they are contributing and then they feel like they're benefiting in some way, that it makes them go that little extra mile. That's why they come earlier on to treat a patient, because they're feeling valued. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Staff want to feel valued. And when they get that little bit extra, although the money, I think a lot of the times is not that important to a lot of the vet rehabbers. Like, they just want to earn a good living and they want to be able to pay for the expenses. So a lot of vet rehabbers are not driven by money. So it's not like, if you think about it in the corporate kind of world, where people are really driven by earning loads of money. We know we came into this field, we're never going to earn loads and loads of money. We're here to because of the animals, but it is nice to be rewarded. So when you do that, how is it? Is it like a profit share? Do you have a percentage, or is it specific for certain people depending on what they do, or how does it work?
It's pretty random because I only started doing it like in the last 1.5 years. And then COVID hit and there was no extra. I mean, we're pretty lucky in Canada that we were topped up by the government, so I could then top their salaries up if they were not making what they were before. So I usually look and say, okay, how was this month? What do we have left over? What can I afford to split up amongst the staff? And then I look at normally what they make on a weekly basis, and I give them like a percent of that. So the assistants get something, because again, these assistants are running their butts off right now for COVID. They are in the building, out of the building, answering the phones, helping with the treadmill, helping with popsicles. Like, they don't stop, and they need to be rewarded for that, because the assistants out of all of us make the least amount of money, right? And these are smart girls. I'm probably going to have to hire another one because I think everybody's going back to school. And that makes everybody nervous because we have such a solid team. We're like, how do we bring someone else new into this team that's going to work? And I think I would never rush into hiring anyone. I think we would rather go short someone than bring the wrong person into this group.
Yeah, and that's another thing is, when you have a practice, because we all play such key roles, you need, and it's a bit like a vet practice, when the vet is sick, the practice doesn't really run very well. So when we have one of our key players that are sick, it completely overwhelms everyone else. How do you handle those kind of situations?
When they're sick?
Yeah, like they just phone in and they phone in that morning and just say, like, anyone, whether it's you or anyone else, just say, I can't come in today. Like, I'm vomiting. I'm so sick. I can't come in. And suddenly, well, that's good.
Yeah. And we've talked about it with COVID, like, because if one of us is showing signs, we've all agreed that, we got to get tested and not come in until we're cleared, just because we're such a small group. But I think historically, Jen has only been sick once. I don't think Emily, other than when she had to take off for surgery, has ever been sick. And so if they are, then we often make do. If anything, we're short, again, always on assistance. So it just means we try and help the assistant out as much as possible. And, you pitch in and you do what you have to do. I think as far as me, so I have Sophie is the other acupuncturist here, and I'll call her and say, can you take a shift? And she'll come in and cover me. And it's the same thing. If someone else is sick, I'm like, let me know. If I'm free, I'll come in and I'll pick up some appointments. Sometimes it's just a matter of, like, we have a lot of part-timers, so we can pull in and say, hey, do you want some more hours this week? And then we kind of cover each other that way. So me only being there 3 days is definitely helpful. Yeah, because they can pull in someone else.
And so the part-timers, are they working elsewhere on the other 2 days?
No.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, that's a lie. Sophie, the acupuncturist, only works for us. And we try and give her more hours whenever we can. My other rehab tech was working somewhere else, but came back to us. And so again, then COVID hit. So the hours I promised weren't there, but we're getting busier and busier. We're trying to increase her hours. Our limiting factor is our space. So I would like to move and buy a bigger spot. But then, I'm not sure how to go about doing that and when to do that. Again, that's a financial decision I'm nervous about making. So we're just trying to make do with the space we have and section things off. So if we have more people, but again, we're limited by one water treadmill, which if we bring in more rehab, most of them are in the water. But we do have Emily, so she's easy to pull in if we really need to. And then there's another vet who works, again, if someone's called in sick or Emily's going away next Saturday, so she's going to come in and cover her Saturday shift, and she's a full-time vet somewhere else as well. So yeah.
That 3-day consulting, it's not the first time I've heard about it. So I just recently interviewed a vet in Romania who's a vet rehabber, and he does the same thing. So he actually works 12-hour days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And it also helps with, obviously, salaries, because, you either are doing that or you're working 8 to 4, Monday to Friday. And then you're obviously paying somebody a lot more than if they were working 3 days. So the hours are different, but that's what they do. They just pack it in Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He says he's exhausted after the Monday. Then he has Tuesday to take a break, and he catches up on marketing and all the admin and all of that, then does Wednesday, and that's how it goes. But it works. It really, really works. I mean, his practice is also doing really well. He's about to buy another underwater treadmill. So he'll have 2 running, and I said to him, now with another underwater treadmill, would you think about expanding to 5 days a week? And he said, no, this works. I'm staying with that.
I'd hire someone else to run it.
Yeah, and it's the work-life balance I think that he's also getting now. And he's packed. He sees 24 patients a day in his 12 hours. How he does that, I have no idea. He must be absolutely exhausted.
How does he do that? On
I
his
have
own?
no idea. He's got assistants, he's got people, but he's very hands-on. So he's in there doing a lot of stuff. So yeah, no, it sounds pretty hectic. But yeah, the 3 days for him, that works. And I think you got to just work out what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's chat about, is there anything that you can think of that you've done in your practice that has really made a difference to the way your practice runs or the success of your practice?
Definitely adding assistants. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I look back and I used to do everything. I mean, again, I think when you start any veterinary hospital, you see vets do it all the time. They can't afford techs. They can't afford reception. They're answering the phones. They're doing everything, maybe with one other person until they can bring in more revenue. So it made sense. But I was by myself all the time, answering phones, trying to answer emails, but they didn't happen as frequently. And now, I mean, our phone's ringing off the hook all day. We have like multiple emails coming in. I look back, I'm like, there's no way I could do it or do anything by myself. We're too busy for it. So I think doubling our appointments in the time that we're open, again, has made a huge difference to our bottom line. I'm not sure what else. And then our team, for sure.
Yeah.
I really, it's a space occupying problem that we have right now that we're trying to sort out.
Francisco has a great comment. He said, for me, the biggest return on investment in an employee is not the amount of revenue they generate, but the time I buy back with them and what I do with that time. And that's exactly it. It's like, we're spending time, if you're spending time making appointments or doing invoices or cleaning treadmills and drying dogs, what could you do with that time, which would be better? Well, and a lot of the things, if I think about like the key things in running of a practice, which a lot of the vet rehabbers don't have time for, is like things like basically the marketing of the practice. Often people don't have time to do any of the marketing, because you're doing all those things. You're doing the invoices, cleaning the treadmill, and doing all those things. And that should be somebody else doing it, and you spending that time on marketing. How do you run the marketing side of your practice?
So Cassie, who is one of my assistants, she's just started a master's program, but she's going to continue working part-time for us. She'll be at school doing social media. She takes pictures and videos the entire time she's here, and then she waits for a gap in something because I haven't posted anything, and she always has something ready. So she's been pretty on top of that, and she's younger than me. So she's way more informed about Instagram. She's taught me a lot. So I think that has been a huge help. And then Jenna, especially when we were in COVID, and even now, she often isn't here 4 days a week anymore. So she gets her 40 hours over 4 days because she drives about 2.5 hours to come to work. Sure. Yeah, she's amazing. So she offered to take over some accounting, office managerial stuff. So on her days that she's at home, she does payroll for me, which even if it's so small and it's like a half an hour, it's a half an hour I no longer have to worry about. And she is doing kind of the cross-checking of accounting stuff for me, which is super, super helpful. She's been doing the schedule for the girls, which she's taken these over, and then she's like, this is stressful. I'm like, yes. And I'm no longer stressed. So, and it alleviates my days from home that, the girls call frequently because they have questions, and they should. And I've made myself available to them because I'm the owner. And I feel like, although, people worry about exhausting yourself and, being fatigued from all of it, I think it's important that they know that they're supported. So if something is going astray, that they can call me, and I always have my cell phone on me. But it alleviates me to do my blog, or to do this with you, or to do these other things, or to teach. And So it's been super, super helpful. And I know we had that question about someone having someone virtually. And I think, so Jenna essentially is virtual when she's doing all this stuff for me. So if you could have someone do all your invoicing, do all your phone calls, do your email reminders, they don't have to be with you. I think it's huge. It opens up so much more time that you can either be working in clinic or doing stuff at home.
Yeah, I think like a virtual assistant or virtual PA is so easy now. I mean, I think when I opened my practice, it was a whole lot harder because we weren't on computers. We were on paper, like everything was written. So the invoices were done online, but the invoices were taken from my notes, which were paper. Whereas now everything is online. And I also think of WhatsApp, so I've got a PA. Ali, she's out there. Thank you, Ali, for everything you do for me. And WhatsApp is amazing. I just voice message, Ali, please can you do this for me? And if you were busy or in consult and you just finished the consult, the client's gone out, you could easily say to your assistant, can you do this or invoice this? And they can do it. They can send the invoice. So there's so much that it's so easy nowadays because we're online. And I think it would change someone's world if they had them, and they could work a certain number of hours and just think about the time it would free up. Because I think about when you get a client in, if you're doing everything, and I remember back to those days where, the client comes in and you always have to have this big buffer period between clients. So you can't fit those clients in, so you end up working a whole day because you've got like a 20 minutes or half an hour buffer for when that client comes in. Then you've got to take the payments, write the invoice out or print the invoice out to them, email it to them, and then maybe make their next appointments, sitting there making the next appointments. If you were just in the whole time, so one client's in and then somebody else was doing that, and they can just do it electronically, you would save loads and loads of time. And what you could turn a full day of work maybe into a half day of work and have an afternoon off with your family or go ride your horse or whatever.
And I think, so we used to paper too. And then I think it was a year ago in October, we decided to go with an electronic medical system. And it's probably the best decision I've ever made. Most of them were super expensive. And so I was trying to figure out how to make that work. But we found Hippo, which is, I don't know, I think it's American. And it's not perfect, but I mean, as far as organizing our x-rays and having referrals and being able to have all the invoicing in there, it's been super, super helpful. And I think it is saving us an enormous amount of time not having paper records.
Yeah.
And it's easier to send them off too, right?
And hard to lose things. Because I remember those days where they're like, you're waiting, now the client's and you can't find the file. It's normally in that little box outside the door. And then you're like looking and then they say, oh no, we can't find the file. And it's been like 6 months or 8 months since you've last seen the clients. And you're like, what did it have, when you try and remember, Yeah. So yeah, those are parts of being electronic that's really helpful. I suppose you could lose it.
Well, and it still happens, right? People are like, yeah, we were there 2 years ago and we wanted to come back. And I'm like, 2 years ago? I don't remember yesterday. So we're like looking through boxes, trying to find files that are inactive. It's insane. So, I look 2 years into the future and I'll be like, I'll just pull that up on my electronic medical system and it'll be right there. So.
For those of you that are listening, if you guys have got any questions, please post them in the comments and we'll do our best to answer them. We're sort of about to close up. I'm going to check on my list to see if there's anything else that we haven't tackled. Oh, yeah. One of the things in your blog was your goals. So actually having a goal and a direction for where you're going and being okay with that changing. And I think that's really important because like if I think about my practice in the very beginning, I didn't really know where I was going. I was just doing. I was just getting through each day. And I remember just hiring more people and it getting busier with no end goal in mind. I didn't say this is what I want. This is what I'm working towards. And until I actually sat down and made that decision, it made the decisions for hiring new people and where I was going so much easier. And I really sort of solidified what I wanted from my practice. And I think that it also helped when I had got those goals for myself. I think it also helped in hiring staff, because I also then looked at like, what are my core values and what are the core values of my practice? And then, are the people that are with me, are they aligned? So are these the right people to take me and to get that goal that I want? And then I quickly suddenly realized there were a few key people in there that weren't. So they didn't have, for example, work ethic is often a thing. I think that majority of us are extremely hardworking kind of people. So when we have one person in the practice that isn't, then resentment builds up, because all of us are working flat out and that person is just, taking the easy ride, slipping out when, they're not doing the extra work, tidying up later. And so how did the goals that you set, did they change drastically, or did you pretty much sort of have a goal and then just work towards it, and you're still pretty much doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I even had a goal. So I always wanted to own my own practice. Like, that's what I wanted from the beginning. I wanted to be an owner, and maybe it was the experiences I had had as an associate I was not happy with. But the last clinic I worked as an associate at for quite some time, and I knew owning was not an option. Partnering was not an option there. And so I started looking at places that I could buy, and it was just going bad after bad after bad. And so there was kind of a tipping point where I hit like the third hospital, and he's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to sell to you. I'm going to sell to my son, or whatever the case may be. And I was like, oh, and at the same time was approached to open this place. And I was like, that's it. I'm opening this place. I don't know what it's going to be. I will locum if I have to. And I wanted to own something. My goal was to be able to run something. And if I failed, I failed. But I needed to put all the ideas I'd had in my head for all those years to use. And so that's how it started. And then it became, well, how can I build this? And can I make it like a successful full-time clinic? So then I did that. And, I always say, if I had $1 million, if I had an unlimited amount of money, not even that, if I had money, my ideal practice would be multiple exam rooms. So I'm not limited as to what we can see and how many people we can hire to do these things, where maybe I could have a massage therapist and that's all she does in one room is do massage therapy, because God knows we get a lot of requests for that. And our rehab techs who are certified in massage have no time to just sit there and do massage, right? So that would be one thing, with maybe 2 water treadmills and a nice big like boardroom upstairs where I could teach, right? Where we could, when we have our students or our vet students or our vets coming to do their acupuncture stuff, that we have a room where we go up and do presentations. And I'm like, that would be my ideal. And a boarding area. So those dogs that are down and you really want to get them going in those first week, right? Where you could treat them every single day, but owners are nervous about managing them at home. Having something like that would be my dream. It also blows my mind at the management aspect of that and how that would run, but that would be my ideal.
Yeah, but you can hire people to do that, right?
Yeah.
You got it when you got a thing like that. Yeah, so it's possible. So maybe one day I will be visiting you in Canada. I mean, SOAR is soaring.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, cool. So for those of you that are interested, this year at Vet Rehab Summit, we actually have a discussion room on business, and we'll be chatting on how to build a resilient practice. So we're going to be looking at, if you guys have your own business, you can come in and you'll be able to analyze with a worksheet, basically, is your practice resilient? And obviously through COVID, a lot of us really found ourselves in a really sticky position where we weren't able to practice. And it's something that a lot of us were not prepared for, because it's not something that we ever thought would happen. And so, this is going to be a really, really interesting discussion room. So invite you guys to come to that discussion room at Vet Rehab Summit, 14th of November. So we've got a few more comments. I think that's from Jen. For me, it's space. I don't need more people to call over. Thanks for addressing my question, Jen Panko. And then someone said, massage has been the best addition to my place and the thing owners want and veterinarians typically don't think of or recommend. Owners think it is logical and love the option. Yeah, I think they can really relate to massage, right? I had a massage therapist at my practice and she was super busy. So yeah. Awesome. Danielle, I know you're busy and you've got loads of consults waiting for you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat to us. Guys, if you have any more questions, please post them in the comments and myself and Danielle will get a chance. We will answer them. And yeah, it's been awesome chatting to you, Danielle.
You too, Megan.
Awesome, guys. Have a great day. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.